A son was born to a poor peasant. He rejoiced and went to a neighbor to ask him to stand as godfather to the boy. The neighbor refused. He did not want to be godfather to a poor man's son, so the peasant went to another neighbor and he too refused. He walked from house to house, but could find no one who would be godfather to his son. So he set out to another village. On his way he met a stranger, who stopped him and said, "Good day, peasant. Where are you going to?" "God has given me a child," the peasant said, "to gladden my sight in my youth, to comfort me in my old age, and to pray for my soul when I die. No one in our village will be godfather to him, so I am going to seek one elsewhere." "Let me be his godfather," the stranger said. The peasant rejoiced. He thanked the stranger and said, "But whom shall I ask to be his godmother?" "Go into the town," the stranger said. "In the square you will see a stone house with shop windows. Go in and ask the merchant to let his daughter stand as godmother to your son." The peasant was doubtful. "But how can I ask a rich merchant? He will be too proud to let his daughter come to a poor man like me." "That won't be your fault. Go and ask him. Have everything ready by the morning and I'll come to the christening." The peasant went home, then drove into the town to the merchant. He had no sooner stopped in the yard than the merchant came out. "What do you want?" he asked. "God has given me a child to gladden my sight in my youth, to comfort me in my old age, and to pray for my soul when I die. Will you be kind enough to let your daughter come and be godmother to the child?" "When is the christening?" "Tomorrow morning." "Very well. Go in God's name. Tomorrow my daughter will be at the church." The next day the godmother and the godfather came. The child was christened, but directly after the christening, the godfather disappeared. No one knew who he was, and no one saw him from that day. The child grew up to the parents' great joy, and he was strong and industrious, and clever and humble. When he was 10 years old, the parents sent him to school, and what it took others 5 years to learn, the boy learned in 1, and there was no one in the village who could teach him more. Easter came around, and the boy went to his godmother to give her the Easter greeting. When he returned home, he said, "Father and Mother, where does my godfather live? I should like to give him the Easter greeting too." And the father said, "We don't know where your godfather lives, dear son. We too have worried over that. We have not seen him since you were christened. We have not heard of him and don't know where he lives, nor whether he is alive at all." The boy bowed to his father and mother. "Let me go," he said. "Let me go to seek my godfather. I want to find him and give him the Easter greeting." The father and mother gave their consent, and the boy set out to find his godfather. The boy left the house and set out on his way. About midday he met a stranger, and the stranger stopped and said, "Good day to you, boy. Where are you going?" And the boy said, "I went to my godmother to give her the Easter greeting, and when I returned home I asked my parents where my godfather lived, because I want to give him the greeting too. But my parents said, 'We don't know where your godfather lives, dear son. We have not heard of him since you were christened, and we don't know anything about him, or whether he is alive at all. And I want to see my godfather, so I am going to find him.'" "I am your godfather," the stranger said. The boy rejoiced and gave him the Easter greeting. "Where are you going to, godfather?" "If you are going in our direction, come in to us." or if you are going home, may I come with you?" And the stranger said,
"I have no time to come to you now, because I have some business in the villages. I shall not be home until tomorrow, when you can come to me if you like."
"But how shall I find you, godfather?"
"Walk straight towards the east until you come to a wood, in the midst of which you will find a clearing. Sit down to rest in that clearing and look about you to see what is happening. When you come out of the wood, you will see a garden, and in the garden is a house with a golden roof. That is my house. Go in at the gate. I will meet you there myself."
Saying these words, the godfather vanished from the godson's sight. The boy followed the godfather's directions. He wandered and wandered till he came to a wood and found the clearing. And in the midst of the clearing stood a pine tree, to a branch of which a heavy block of oak was attached with a string, and beneath the block was a trough of honey. As the boy was wondering why the honey and the block were there, a crackling was heard among the trees, and out came a family of bears. The mother came in front, and the yearling and some cubs followed behind. The mother, sniffing the air, went straight to the trough, the cubs following. She thrust her muzzle into the honey and called to the cubs to do the same. They scampered up and thrust in their muzzles. The block swung back a little and, returning, hit against the cubs. When the mother saw this, she shoved the block away with her paw. The block swung back further, and, returning more forcibly, struck one cub on the back and another on the head. The cubs jumped away, howling with pain. The mother bear growled, and seizing the block in her forepaws, flung it away from her violently. The block flew up high. The yearling ran up to the trough, thrust his muzzle into the honey. The other cubs followed him, but no sooner had they got there than the block swung back, struck the yearling on the head and killed him. The mother bear growled more angrily as she seized the block and flung it away with all her might. The block flew higher than the branch. The string it was tied to even slackened. The mother bear and the cubs came up to the trough. The block flew higher and higher, then stopped and began to descend. The lower it got, the swifter became its course. It crashed down on the mother bear's head. She fell over, her legs twitched, and she died. The cubs ran away into the wood. The boy wandered and went on further. He came to a large garden, and in the garden was a high house with a golden roof. At the gate stood his godfather, smiling. He greeted his godson, made him come inside the gate, and took him around the garden. He had never even dreamt of such beauty and joy as there was in that garden. The godfather took the boy into the house, and he found that more wonderful still. The godfather showed him all the rooms, one more beautiful than the other. Then he brought him to a sealed door.
"Do you see this door?"
he asked.
"It is not locked, only sealed. It can be opened, but I forbid you to do it. You can live here and go where you like and do what you like. Taste of every pleasure. I forbid you only one thing, to pass that door. But if it should happen that you do go in, remember what you saw in the wood."
With these words, the godfather went away, and the godson was left alone. His life was so full of pleasure and such a happy one that when he had been there 30 years, it seemed to him no more than 3 hours. Thus the 30 years passed, and the godson came to the sealed door, thinking, "I wonder why my godfather forbade me to go into this room. I will go in and see what is there." He pushed the door. The seal gave way and the door opened. The godson went in and saw that the room was large and more beautiful than all the others, and in the middle of it stood a golden throne. The godson wandered and wandered over the room. Then he stopped by the throne, mounted the steps, and sat down. He saw a scepter by the throne, and he took it up in his hand. He had no sooner touched the scepter than the walls of the room rolled asunder. The godson looked about and saw the whole world and everything people were doing in it. Straight before him was the sea and ships sailing on it. To the right were foreign lands where heathens lived. To the left were Christians, but not Russians. On the fourth side were our own Russian people. "I will look and see what is happening at home," he said. "I wonder if the corn is good this year." He looked at his father's field and saw the sheaves standing in them. He began to count the sheaves to see if the harvest had been good. When he saw a cart coming over the field with a peasant sitting in it, he looked closer and saw that it was Vasily, a thief. Vasily stopped by the sheaves and began putting them into the cart. The godson could not endure this and cried aloud, "Father, they are stealing your sheaves." The father awoke in the night. "I dreamed that someone was stealing my sheaves," he said. "I will go and see." He got upon his horse and rode out. When he got to the fields, he saw Vasily and called aloud for help. Some peasants came up. Vasily was beaten, bound, and taken to prison. The godson then looked towards the town where his godmother lived and saw that she had married a merchant. She was lying in bed, and her husband got up to leave her to go to another woman. And the godson cried aloud to his godmother, "Get up! Your husband is going to do something wicked." The godmother jumped up, dressed, and set out to find her husband. She brought him to shame, beat the other woman, and would not take her husband back again. The godson looked again towards his home and saw his mother lying in the house, and that a robber had stolen in and was breaking open a trunk. The mother woke and cried out in terror. The robber raised his axe and was about to kill her. But the godson could endure no more. He thrust the scepter straight into the robber's temple and killed him on the spot. He had no sooner slain the robber than the walls rose up again and the room became as before. The door opened and the godfather entered. He approached the godson, took him by the hand, led him from the throne, and said, "You did not obey my commands. You did one wrong thing in opening the forbidden door, another when you mounted the throne and took my scepter into your hand, and a third wrong, which has added to the evil in the world. Had you sat on the throne an hour longer, you would have ruined half mankind." And the godfather once more led the godson up to the throne, and he took the scepter in his hand, and the walls rolled asunder. And the godfather said, "See what you have done to your father. Vasily sat in prison for a year and learnt every kind of wickedness, and came out completely corrupted. See, he has driven off 2 of your father's horses, and is now setting fire to his barns. This is what you have done to your father." As soon as the godson saw his father's barns burst into flame, the godfather hid the view from his sight and bade him to look in another direction. "See, it is now a year since your godmother's husband left her, and he goes after other women, and his wife has taken to drink, and his former mistress has fallen to still lower depths. This is what you have done to your godmother." This sight, too, he hid from the godson's gaze and bade him look towards his own home. His mother was weeping and saying, "It would have been better if the robber had killed me than that I should have so many sins on my soul."
"This is what you have done to your mother."
This sight too the godfather shut out and bade the godson look below. And he saw 2 keepers guarding the robber in a dungeon. And the godfather said,
"This man has killed 9 people. He should have atoned for his sins himself, but in killing him, you have taken them upon your own soul. Now you must answer for all his sins. This is what you have done to yourself. When the mother bear first pushed the block aside, she merely disturbed her cubs. When she pushed it a second time, she killed her yearling. When she pushed it a third time, she was killed herself. You have done exactly the same. I gave you a term of 30 years. Go into the world and atone for the robber's sins. If you fail to do so, you will have to take his place."
"But how shall I atone for his sins?" the godson asked. And the godfather said,
"When you have rid the world of as much evil as you brought into it, then you will have atoned for your own and the robber's sins."
And the godson asked, "How can I rid the world of evil?" And the godfather said,
"Walk straight towards the east until you come to some fields on which you will find some people. Take note of what they are doing and teach them what you know. Then go on further, observing everything on the way. On the 4th day you will come to a wood in which you will find a cell. And in this cell a hermit lives. Tell this hermit all that has happened, and he will instruct you in what you are to do. When you have done all that the hermit has told you, you will have atoned for your own and the robber's sins."
With these words the godfather put the godson out at the gate. And the godson set out, thinking as he walked, "How can I rid the world of evil?" People rid the world of evil by banishing evil men or putting them in prison or executing them. But how can I rid the world of evil without taking other men's sins upon myself? And the godson wondered and wondered, but could come to no decision. He wandered and wandered till he came to a field on which tall rich corn was growing, ready to be harvested. And the godson saw a calf that had strayed in among the corn, and he saw men chasing the calf this way and that, and trampling down the corn. Each time the calf was about to come out of the corn, someone rode up, and the calf got frightened and ran back again, the men after it. In the road stood a woman, crying, "They will chase my calf to death." And the godson said to the men, "What are you doing? Come out of the corn and let the woman call to her calf." The men did so. The woman came up to the edge of the field and called to the calf, who pricked up its ears, listening a while. Then it ran towards her and buried its nose in her skirts, nearly knocking her down. The men were glad, and the woman was glad, and the calf too was glad. The godson went on his way thinking, "I see that evil breeds evil. The more people try to drive away evil, the more the evil grows, which shows that it is impossible to drive out evil by evil. But how can one drive it out? I don't know. It is well that the calf obeyed its mistress. If it had not done so, how should we have got it out of the corn?" And the godson wondered and wondered, but could come to no decision, and went on further.